Welcome to Who Are You, a CSI podcast. I am Lauren, and I have seen CSI through and through around 3 to 4 times.
And I'm Nick, and I'm experiencing these episodes for the very first time.
And today we are reviewing Season 2, Episode 2, Chaos Theory. Original air date October 4th, 2001. Director is Kenneth Fink. Writers are Anthony E. Zeiker, Eli Talbert, and Josh Berman. And we open this episode, unsurprisingly, with shots of the Vegas Strip, but also with some fireworks.
Yeah, we have
Woo!
Pretty good Vegas score.
Okay, I was going to say, because we stayed on the Vegas Strip for a decent amount of time. So I was like, this is gonna help the score go up.
Yeah, well, I don't know if I mentioned this last time, but the other part of the new LV score, as I'm going to call it, is that I also count inter-episode Vegas shots.
I don't think you mentioned that in the last episode. I don't think so.
And there is like an additional, but the opening scene is 2 shots, 12 seconds, which is pretty long by recent episode standards.
Yeah.
And then there's one additional shot for like 3 seconds somewhere in the middle of the episode.
Okay.
So it all combines together and they get 24 points out of a possible 55. And so we're not quite at the halfway on the LV mark, but
yeah. But we're inching in the right direction.
Yeah, I would call that a respectable Las Vegas score.
Yeah. And then we go into a bathroom. We follow a girl in a towel through a dorm for a little while. We see, a bunch of other kids, college students.
Very gratuitous, like early 2000s college movie vibes.
Yes, 100%.
Like, why 100%. Do we need? Why are we starting this episode in the girls' bathroom?
This is not the victim. This is like she plays no role in the episode from here on out. And after kind of following a few different groups of students, we end up at room 410, and there's a girl looking out the window. It's raining. There's luggage. You can kind of tell that her room has been packed up. She gets a phone call. Her taxi's waiting outside. So she's like, yeah, I'll be right down.
So I have to give some shout outs to the scene because spoiler alert, there's a lot of things that happen in this episode that they set up for in this scene.
Yes.
And I was pleasantly surprised, and it definitely bumped up what I think the quality episode is. So the first is that they pan to look at her suitcases, but very prominently in the background is her trash bin.
Which, spoiler alert, plays one of the most major roles in this episode by the time we get to the end of this episode.
And it's absolutely full of trash. And she's you think she's looking at her suitcase, but I think she's meant to be looking
at the trash.
At the trash bin.
Yeah.
And then she walks over and puts her jacket on. And only after she started putting her jacket on does she get a phone call that her cab is downstairs.
Yes.
She replies that she was actually putting her jacket on to take the trash out.
Before she got the phone call.
Yeah, before her cab got there. Previously, she was looking at the window waiting for the cab to show up.
Yeah.
And so I was like, they do such a good job of it. You're not supposed to think anything's out of the ordinary.
Right.
But now that having watched the show and gone back and rewatched the show, it's incredibly clever and well put together scene.
This is definitely a very good episode to watch twice. Even if you're not recording a podcast, this is a very good episode to watch through twice, which I don't say that about too many episodes, but to this point, there's a lot of things that you pick up on your second watch through that you don't on the first. So
and they're not all positive. I have some later gripes.
Yep, same. So we'll get there. We then have cops arriving at the dorm. Jim Brass is walking with Grissom. The missing person is Paige Rykoff. She is a dropout. Like, she was supposed to be leaving college to go back home, but she's been missing for 4 days, which a long time. And I don't know, like, I'm a true crime person. I'm one of those basic people that loves their true crime. And I love the first 48. And it's really difficult to solve a crime after the first 48 hours. Like, your solve rate nosedives if you don't have like a suspect in the first 48 hours. So
and they've alluded to that in some other episode, Creighton Burial or something.
Yes. Right? Yes. When that woman was quote unquote missing, which she did sort of end up being missing. And so they go into the dorm room. They go into room 410. Grissom asks everyone to leave. They do. Jim Brass stays though. And Grissom is noticing that there's no signs of struggle in the room. The room looks fine. Looks clean. I mean, the luggage is there. Like, that's weird. Like, why is her luggage here and she's not here? But there's no signs of a struggle.
It's orderly. Like, no one's rifled through her bags.
Right. And Grissom also learns that the door auto locks behind you. And there was no key in her luggage, which would suggest that she had the key on her. So why didn't she come back into her room? It's not like she didn't have the key to get back into her room.
It's not like she locked herself out.
Right.
Like she forgot her luggage, should have come back. Something happened in the interceding time or something.
Right. So this brings us to credits. We then have Warwick and Grissom at the entrance of the college, or one of the entrances of the dorm. And this is where we learn, and I'll be curious to hear your thoughts on this. This is where we learn that there's a lot of cameras.
Mm-hmm.
And then for the rest of the episode, there's kind of like a fading, or not fading, but there's like a transition from seeing the cast and seeing people on camera to then seeing them clearly in the scene.
Yep. Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is a different direction than we've really seen before in the show.
Yeah. I mean, obviously the cameras weren't that good. The little TV magic happening here. But
I know, I was going to say, I was watching this and I was like, there's no way these security cameras are this clear in 2000, like in early 2000. I was like, there's no way these cameras are this good. This
is, I think, maybe a year before I guess I started college, or 2001. So like the fact that like that's exactly what existed in the freshman dorms at my school, where everyone had to badge in, everyone had to badge out, security guard the door, everyone was on camera. I think they even had metal detectors.
I went to a very loosey-goosey school, I think. Yeah. We had badges to get in, and that was about it.
Well, this is
I lived in the dorm that like they would just keep one of the doors to our building propped open, and so people could just come and go as they wanted to. So
we both went to state schools in the same state.
Go to state schools in the same
I just
state.
I just think it's the age in which they got around to updating each individual. Because I don't think that was true of any other building, by the way. It was only the freshman dorms that had all this.
See, that was funny because like at our college, the freshman dorms were the super, super old ones.
Yeah.
And it was like you got the nicer, newer dorms as you got older.
Yeah.
And
they had renovated this dorm entrance.
Oh, mine had not been. I mean, my dorm was like straight from the 60s or 70s and had not been renovated.
It was one of the most brutalist architecture colleges. Makes you feel like you're living in a dystopian society.
It's so weird.
I love that campus. I was out there.
It is fun. It is like I think it grows on you, but it
has a lot of space.
It has a lot of space. It has a lot of sharp angles, a lot of concrete, a lot of cement.
Yeah. Classic. It's probably a UNESCO World Heritage Site by now.
Yeah, probably. So Sarah arrives. She lets them know the scent dogs are on their way. Then we go to Catherine and Nick. They're talking about how long it's going to get the interviews of everybody who lived on the dorm because there's so many people who live in the dorm. Grissom, though, asks Nick to review the video. He wants Nick on the video, the security footage. Then Grissom and Sarah are in room 410. And Grissom, again, just tasting stuff, just putting stuff in his mouth.
Oh, yeah.
Like, there's like a little smudge on the wall, and he smoops it and then puts it in his mouth, and he's like, ooh, minty. And Sarah's like, yeah, it's an old trick. It's an old college trick to, if you hang posters and you make holes in the wall, you use toothpaste to fill in the holes so you get your security deposit back.
At first.
Oh, God.
He's like, oh, minty. He's like, oh, it's going to be like chewing gum.
Yeah, toothpaste.
But also, what's the point of wearing gloves if you're going to lick them?
Yeah, I don't know.
Now you're contaminating everything.
I know. It was just gross. As we talked about in the last episode, don't pick things up from the ground, lick them and put them in your eyeball. Don't lick random substances that you find, on walls at a crime scene.
Sanders could have had a DNA match for a 5'11" workaholic.
Yeah. That was a good line.
So later on scene reference.
Yes. Greg noticed Greg. Now you said Greg, now it's in my brain. Grissom notices a void, and they think maybe it's from an area rug, which this sort of comes back later, but not really. They never actually explain what happens to her rug.
Yes, I had this in my notes. I was like, wait.
So weird. They talk about what happens to a rug, but not her rug specifically.
So the first time I watched this episode, I thought the implication was that they stole her rug.
Yes, but it's not.
But that's not what he says.
That's not what
happens. When I watched it the second time, I was like, oh no, that's not what he said.
No.
They stole the common room rug. So they never explained where her rug went.
No. They bring this up, and then it just never never really comes up again. So this is definitely one of the,
I mean, she could have given it,
strings.
you're leaving campus, you give somebody your stuff.
Yeah.
It's totally plausible. Maybe that's a deleted scene. But also, I just want to take a moment to shame Grissom.
Oh, okay.
You were in this room earlier on a whole nother day.
Yes.
You're in a missing person case. Time is of the essence. You didn't notice there was a missing area rug?
Yeah, then.
It was really obvious.
Yeah, you made everybody leave the room because like you needed silence and you needed stillness to do this inspection, and he didn't notice it then. That's a good point. I didn't catch that.
So yeah, when I rewatched it, I realized, oh wait, the finding the missing rug thing wasn't in the first time he was in the room.
Yeah, it's later.
And I
It's
was like,
later
oh
on.
yeah, that's a big deal.
Mm-hmm. So then we go to Catherine and work. They're in the hallway. Catherine's all strapped up to go down the trash chute because they're thinking maybe someone murdered Paige and threw her body down the trash chute, and that's how they disposed of the body.
Weird scene.
It's a very weird scene. So this is another good one. This is another one that plays a very big role later on in the episode. They make a very quick comment about how the door down to the chute is like a little snappy. Like it snaps back into place.
I saw this the first time, and I thought they were trying to like allude to Catherine being afraid of heights or something.
Yeah, no, this is
like she was uncomfortable and she was being weird and she didn't really want to do it. And I went, this is a really weird new arc for Catherine's story. That
yeah.
Who actually she has like a very new look. She's very glammed up.
Yes, she is very glammed in this episode.
I thought she was a new character the first time.
You're like, who is this woman?
I was like, who's this person? And I was like, wait. And then she started talking. I went, oh.
Like, oh, it's Catherine.
Nope, that's a normal character. I should totally know and recognize.
Yeah. I mean, we did get through a whole season. So this is season 2 of CSI.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great time to introduce a new character.
Yeah. So we then move to Nick with the video security guy.
The security guard really loves his job.
He loves his job.
He knows so much about how security cameras work.
Here's a fun spoiler, because it doesn't spoil any storylines. This person ends up becoming, and I don't know if they reference that he worked here or if he's supposed to be a different character, but this guy ends up being a regular on the show as the video guy in the crime lab.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Was he supposed to be in the crime lab?
No. Because he has 2 credits for CSI under his IMDb because he's this character, and then he ends up being the video guy at the crime lab later on.
Oh, he's M. Blaze after being campus security tech.
Yep. So this is the one we're watching. He's campus security, and then he ends up being the regular video.
For a second, I thought you were gonna have a spot the guest star.
I have a spot the guest star, but this is not.
Oh,
the
I
spot
do
the
too.
guest star.
I hope it's the same person.
All right. Well, we'll find out if it's the same person or not.
Oh.
And
I thought it was quite obscure, so I'm really interested to know where you know them from.
If it's the same one, I'm gonna be really excited. So this is where we see the camera being covered. So the camera in her hallway, being covered, and Nick also sees in the footage that the person had to push off the wall to cover the camera. So he's like, oh, sweet, prints, because the suspect had to put his hand on the wall to then lean up and cover the camera.
This is really a very big teenage boy thing to do.
Yes.
It'd be really cool. I'm going to bounce off the wall and
cover. Parkour.
Yeah.
We then go to Catherine. She's in the chute. Work is on a radio where they're just talking. I can't tell if he's they're on a radio or they're just talking through the chute. I can't quite. I think
they're supposed to be on a radio.
I think they're supposed to be on a radio. So Catherine finds a red substance. There's a moment where we're like, oh, goodness, blood. She also is
yes,
let's taste things.
In a trash chute.
What are you doing?
Did you have any of that liquid you could spray?
What is happening? You have luminol? It's pizza. It's pizza sauce. Don't worry about it.
It's definitely not pizza sauce, by the way.
It does not look like pizza sauce
red
at all.
latex paint.
Yes, but it's supposed to be quote unquote pizza sauce. And then she gets down to, the bottom. She gets through all the way through the chute. They don't find anything else of substance in the chute. And we also realize that the dogs are also chasing their tails. The scent dogs are just kind of not sure where to go. They're confused.
That was one of my least favorite lines. I don't know why.
Oh yeah, the dogs are also chasing their tails. Yeah, it did. It was very dad jokey. Sarah is then in room 410. She's scanning it, and she finds a spot on the mattress, which this becomes very important. Not technically to the Paige storyline, but it opens up a whole other storyline.
She draws this like really careful, but obviously way too large circle.
Yes, around the spot. Yes, yes.
This is like...
And so Nick finds a handprint on the wall. So he goes to where the camera, was angled, and he kind of finds the spot, and he's like misting it, and he finds a handprint.
Do you know what that mist thing was?
I have no idea what that mist thing.
Okay.
I don't think we ever see that thing again.
I was gonna say, I don't think we've seen it before.
I don't think we've seen it before, and I don't think we ever see it again.
There was like a box with mist for the pill bottle that
they do that
last episode.
They do that a lot. They do the like put it in a box and fume it, but I've never seen the like portable misting. And I don't think we ever see it again.
It gave me real sonic screwdriver vibes.
Ooh, good callback. I want to watch the
holiday episode.
The holiday episodes, yeah. So Sarah then walks up to Nick. She says that she found, DNA, blood, semen, in this spot in the mattress, so she needs to get that tested. And then... Did
they celebrate this a little too much?
Yeah, it was a little awkward. They were like, yeah, DNA and fingerprints. And it's like, this girl's still missing, guys.
It was like setting them up and knocking them down or something like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, there's a missing human being.
Yeah, they were, I agree, they were probably not the most professional in this one. So we then go to Grissom, and we kind of hear muffled voices, and then they come into focus, and it ends up being Paige's parents, and this is my spot. The guest star is the father.
Okay, I know
the
not
father.
Mine.
The father is a one Garrett M. Brown. And it took me a little while because I was like, I know him. And I was like, obviously I know him from this because I've seen it 3 or 4 times. But I was like, I know him from somewhere else. I had to deep dive into his IMDb. And then I was like, that's where I know him from. Did you ever watch the show Roswell?
No, but I know what it is.
Okay. So
I watched many things on the CWWB world.
He is the adoptive father of 2 of the aliens. So him and his wife adopted 2 of the aliens, obviously not knowing they were aliens, and
he was in a bunch of episodes.
Yeah, he was in 20 episodes or 30 episodes or something like that. So that is where I know him from, and that is my spot for this star is Garrett M. Brown, who plays Mr. Rykoff in this episode, but I know him as Mr. I think it's Evans. I think it's Mr. Evans in Roswell.
There were quite a few people in this episode who I was like, is this a person I should know?
Yes, I had a few others that I was like, maybe, and then I was like, I don't think so. This one I was like, no, I do know him from somewhere else, and so this is my spot the guest,
including one of the main suspects in this episode, who I was just like, do I know this guy?
Oh, the professor.
Yeah.
And
I was like, I looked at his picture and I was like, I don't think I know him from anywhere. And he's been in things, but I don't know him.
Yeah, you don't know him. Yeah, and this is at least for me, this is definitely an episode that just shows that Grissom is not a people person and is just horribly awkward and doesn't know how to converse. Because obviously the parents are super upset. They're looking for reassurance, and he's basically the only thing you have is evidence. So give me some space to think. Yeah.
I was thinking that
Grissom,
classic Grissom, not super smooth, but also is this just are we playing Catch the Audience Up again? Right, new season.
Yeah.
We need to have some good reestablished Grissom. He's not good with people. They kind of run into this again at the end with the sort of outro scene. With Catherine has to sort of explain how people are to Grissom.
Yeah.
And so I was like, they really seem to want to hit him in a few different ways this episode.
Yeah. So we then go to Grissom watching the footage. Catherine enters. This is where the 5'11" workaholic line comes from. And they see in the footage, because there's a tiny little bit of it that's not covered up from when it was covered. You can see a little sliver of the screen still. So they see something being carried and they think it's a rug, and they're like, oh, rug missing from her room, rug being carried out. That's how she was transported out of the dorm without anybody knowing.
I have a big gripe with this scene because they seem to have so many cameras. Did you not check for someone carrying a rug through the rest of the building? The
rest of it, right.
It's not going in the garbage chute.
They covered one camera.
Yeah.
There's 4 cameras on every level.
Or did they cover every single camera, right? And then
Yeah,
at least
yeah.
maybe you'll get something on one of their side cuts or one of those. They kind of gloss over that, and I was
They
like,
do. Yeah.
that's probably the biggest evidence drop.
Yeah.
Like when they ignore a piece of evidence for the narrative
Yeah.
in this whole episode.
Nick then arrives. He comes into the room and he lets them know that he got an ID from his handprint. So they know who covered the camera. This brings us to Grissom and Nick with said suspect, Henry. And this is where we learn that they stole furniture. They covered the cameras because it was like a pledge prank and they were just stealing furniture, but not furniture from her room. So we still have no idea what happened to her rug.
Yeah,
they stole it from the common area in her floor.
Yeah.
But nothing from her room. So her missing rug is just a missing rug, and we never ever come back to it. And he does admit that he knows Paige. They dated a few times. He tries to play it off like, oh, she's not my type. And Nick's like, she dumped you. Like, get over it. But he's, adamant that he has nothing to do with it, and actually said that, she was dating another guy who was more mature than him. And that's what kind of ended their
dating. I think was what they were trying to set up. Like, that's the line they were trying to set up the whole...
Yes. Yeah. Oh, of course. Yeah, this was definitely a setup to one of our major suspects of the episode. So they realize this is a dead end. We have a brief scene with the parents. They're on a newscast, kind of answering questions about Paige. Sarah walks up to Grissom, lets him know that she needs him in the lab. This is where we learn that the blood that she collected from the dorm room is not Paige's, but the blood... She ran a toxicology report on the blood, and it has the date rape drug Rohypnol in it. So Sarah is saying that there might be two victims, right? Because the blood is not Paige's, but the blood has traces of or evidence of a date rape drug in it. So now Sarah is thinking that they have, the missing person case of Paige, but they also have a rape victim from this blood sample that she collected at the scene.
I have a question.
Yes.
Do they not know whose bed is whose?
Evidently not. But to be fair, the guy carried her. Spoiler alert: the guy carries her in, so it could have been on either one of their beds.
Yeah, that's true.
Like,
also, weird that he carried her back
to her room. Yes. Yeah, I would. Yeah, one would think that. Yeah, it's weird. But... So we then go to Nick and Catherine watching footage of they basically get confirmation that the furniture was moved into. There was like a van or like a bigger vehicle waiting outside, and the frat bros brought the furniture out and like we're loading it in.
I think I missed that.
Yeah, it's pretty quick. And then Catherine is letting Nick's kind of like, I'm done with the footage, and Catherine's like,
go back to the field.
Yeah, and Catherine's like, this is the only witness we have. Like, you have to stay on this footage and you have to watch it further. We then have Jim Brass, Grissom, and Sarah at the roommates, so Paige's roommate's parents' house, and this is where we learn that she didn't report the rape. So she lets them know that she was raped, but she didn't report it, and she can't remember the rapist, which is very common with this date rape drug. Because they're saying like, well, who is it? Because maybe this person also ended up hurting Paige. And she's like, I wish I could tell you, but I can't.
So this is my spot to guest star.
Is her... Okay, I felt like maybe I knew her from somewhere. And then I was like, no, I don't think I do.
So I know this person because they were on most of the Flash TV show. They play the girlfriend of one of the main character's dad, and they're in a bunch of episodes, and eventually know the secret identity and are on the team and all that jazz.
Yeah.
I think I checked it. There's like 120 episodes of the Flash.
Oh, jeez.
And so, that show was on for like 10 years.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But people are much. So her name is Danielle Nicolette. People are much more likely to know her from the hit Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Kevin Hart movie. Nope, not the one you're thinking of. The other one. No, not that one. The other one. Central Intelligence.
Oh, I don't even know that movie.
Which, on the list of movies they've been in together, is pretty close to the bottom.
I was going to say, I've never even heard of that movie. And not that I'm a movie buff by any stretch of the imagination, so...
I have definitely heard of it. I have definitely also not seen it, so I didn't know if she was even in it.
Yeah.
So I also have no idea how big of a part she played in it.
Yeah.
But she is like the third build person, so presumably,
Okay.
I think she's probably Kevin Hart's wife in that.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. All right, so sweet. We have two spot the guest stars.
Yeah.
So we learned that this happened at a
Oh,
floor party.
also, no tapes from that day?
Evidently not. No.
Okay. That was also my note. That right after my
Yeah,
spot
yeah.
the guest star note. I was like, wait a minute,
I mean, to be fair, they probably do like
record over them.
Record over them at some point, so they probably do only have like a week or 2 weeks or something like that worth of footage before they
especially in such high quality.
Yes, and such. I mean,
really
it's taken
expensive tapes.
Yeah, it's really expensive tape. They got to reuse those tapes. So we then have Grissom, Sarah, and Warwick in the elevator, and they're I don't want to say scheming, but they're kind of scheming of how to get DNA from the guys who live on the floor, because now they're like, well, we gotta so I think Sarah and Warwick are kind of like, well, why is this rapist going to give up their DNA? But they're positioning the collection of DNA to help find Paige.
Yep.
But if they give up their DNA willingly, they can use it for whatever purpose they want. So
it's really
they
sad.
can tell you why they're collecting it, but if you willingly give it up, then they can just use it however they want to use it.
What's really sad is I 1,000% think this is super realistic. Like, I think that somebody who drugged and raped, I assume probably not even just only one girl in the entire dorm, probably thinks like he's so untouchable.
Yeah, that he's not worried about it.
And that like he wouldn't be like, well, they wouldn't be like, A, wouldn't be keeping track, B, wouldn't be like thinking that they're coming after him. Yeah. And so if anything, they would just want to draw the least amount of attention to themselves.
Yeah. So they swab, Sarah's swabbing. And then we go to Greg Sanders processing the swab samples, and they narrow it down to one suspect. Bum, bum, bum.
Mark McGuire.
Yes, Mark McGuire. Yes, it does. I mean, this transitions us
That's
to...
a real time of the era.
Yes, it is. Because younger listeners are probably like, who? And especially we do have some international listeners who are also like, what? But,
especially when illegal drugging of humans is involved.
Yeah. So that transitions us to Jim Brass, Grissom, and Warwick at a ball field. And they confront Kevin, who they say assaulted Jennifer Riggs. He doesn't really... he does deny it at first, and then he sort of... he doesn't admit to it, but he sort of cops to it in a way. But as far as Paige goes, he wasn't in town. They were
3-game road trip or something.
Yeah, in Fresno. And they do confirm this, but they do arrest him for the drugging and raping of Jennifer Riggs. So hopefully, I mean, in our country, he probably will see no time. They'll give him a nice little pat and tell him to not do it again and release him. But, at least he got arrested.
Well, I mean, someone's going to play baseball.
Someone's going to play baseball. So we go back to Catherine and Nick reviewing the tape, and Nick has realized that in the section of the tape, there's this one car that circled the area of Paige's dorm 6 times. And they, again, kind of true crime fanatic, and I don't know where I learned this, and hopefully this is correct. I'm going to state this as if it's fact, and then someone's going to be like, that's not true. But from what I've been told, you can't, whatever the quality of the footage is, you can't focus it better. So they do this thing where is there something hanging off of the mirror? And then they cut in, and then they super clear up the image. It goes from being super grainy and you can't see anything to being able to tell that it's a parking placard. From what I've been told, this is not possible. You can't clear up a video.
So here's science with Nick moment.
Yes.
First of the season.
Ooh, first of the season, science
with Nick. So I have to give some credit to this episode because I was gonna lose it. After she said zoom, she said enhance, because that's usually the TV trope, zoom and enhance.
Yeah.
So you can blow it up and you can change the contrast, which is I think what they were doing in this episode.
Oh, okay.
So they made it bigger so you can kind of
that part is fine.
They didn't really read anything. Play the contrast nowadays, so you can't get any information that is lost. But computers nowadays, just like any other form of machine-assisted information or knowledge, there's a lot of really interesting. Have you ever taken a photo with your phone and then hit the enhance button, and it looks so much better? They do a lot of what they call edge detection.
Oh,
So
okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like the they take the pixels and they're like, if they're a little blurry, they straighten them up, make a nice clean edge, and that can often make it easier for you to read text. So like I had a thing where someone had a sticker on the back of their car, and we took a picture of it, and like looking at my phone, I couldn't see it. I could never have read it.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
when I zoomed in on my phone, it just made it take up more space. Now my brain has more, can take
Yeah,
more of that information and deal with it. So there's some truth to that, but in a much more modern sense at this time, other than just blowing it up and making it larger, which is some of what they did, right? It's a tiny little area
yeah, yeah.
on their CRT TV screen, and then they made it take up the whole thing.
Right.
And so now they could say, okay, yeah, that's some kind of placard park, and then they do the negative by doing like the contrast thing. Now they could read the text a little bit better, and then they're like, oh, that's like a parking pass. But they didn't do that thing where they're like, oh, and the parking pass number is 6453, and now we're just gonna go look up who that person
Yeah,
is.
yeah, yeah.
And so they didn't really do the crazy version of this, so I can't, I got to give them points for that. But yeah, you are absolutely correct in a very basic sense that like there's no hidden information that you can ever, there's anytime you get the zoom in then enhance,
Yeah.
that's nonsense.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of like crispness and quality and light balancing, but most of the time when you see that on your camera, it's actually does that by taking like 10 photos
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then
yeah.
using
And
the
then using that to
combination of
yeah,
information
yeah, yeah.
across those 10
Yeah.
photos
Yeah.
to like cram it all into one and give you a better single photo.
Yeah.
This day and time, yeah, there's none of that going on.
So this brings Grissom and Catherine and Nick to the silver Volvo, and they approach the car. It belongs to Robert Woodbury. They open the latch, so like the latch to the trunk, and there's a blanket, and there's kind of a, oh my goodness, is there gonna be a body underneath here? Which, you're in Vegas where it's hot, and she's been missing for 4 days. If that's her body, you would smell that as anywhere near that
A
vehicle. You
block
would
away.
smell that body decomposing in the back of
It's
that
day
car.
6 or something, 7,
5 or 6 or
yeah.
something like that. And so they lift the blanket. It's golf clubs. It's not her body.
Although, I guess, do you think she's unconscious in the back of the car?
I don't know.
Was there a trucker where they had that person kidnapped and they rescued them?
Oh yeah, they were like in the freezer, or they were kept in the back.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like under a bed or something.
yeah. But regard, like
I
she's
mean,
not there.
actually, they'd be dead anyways, because just like you shouldn't leave your pets in your car, you shouldn't leave your kidnapping victims in your car.
Yeah, in your car.
Las Vegas sun.
In Las Vegas sun. Yeah, yeah.
They are not going to be alive.
No, no. So this brings us to Jim Brass, Grissom, and Catherine with the professor. Grissom finds broken pottery, which he takes as a sign of a struggle. And this is the only prompting the professor needs to admit that he had a amorous relationship with Paige. Like, he gives it up so fast. He's like, yeah, I was, having sex with my, like, barely legal student. Like, she's a freshman, so she's like 18 or 19 years old. Like, gross.
Well, he respects Grissom for his knowledge of Henry David Thoreau.
That is true. He did wow him with that, and that's what.
Is it like too on the nose for the college girl to be sleeping with her male philosophy professor? Is that not like the most
like
tropey version of this story?
Yeah. So they tell him, like, we have to take you downtown. Like, you admitted to having an affair with this student, and now said student is missing, and it looks like there was a sign of a struggle here. And he says that he'll come downtown, but he wants to go home first and explain to his wife. So they let him do that. They're just like, yeah, sure, go home and talk to your wife, and then meet us down at the station.
This is the worst version of male privilege.
Yeah, they're just like, yeah, sure.
Of white, especially white
male privilege.
Male privilege, right?
Yeah.
It's like, how many times in the history
and white collar white male
well,
privilege.
I
like, he
don't
just
know.
like,
It's really white collar in the sense that like they think he's probably murdered this woman, right?
No, but I'm saying like he.
Oh,
I mean, white collar in like his career. Like, he has a good.
Okay,
he's not like.
Not a white collar crime,
Yeah, not a white collar crime, but he has a white collar job, and so he's given a pass that maybe like a truck driver wouldn't be given because they're have a more blue collar career.
Yeah, they're like, no, you think you murdered this girl? You get in the back of the car, cuff you,
No, let him go home and explain to his wife what's up.
Yeah, Brass is like, oh, I understand. Because
Yeah,
of all the times I've
I
cheated
get
on
it.
my wife, and I've had to go home and tell her first
Yeah,
before being
I
arrested.
get you, man. I got your back.
Happens all the time.
Yeah, don't worry about
We
it.
arrest murder suspects all the time, and just like, yeah, that's fine. You want to cop about adultery to your wife before you
Yeah,
face.
yeah.
Maybe just
So
thinks she'll emotionally break him down, and he'll be more likely to crack.
yeah, maybe that's what they're banking on. We go to Nick processing the car. He finds blonde hairs. This brings us to Greg Sanders investigating the hairs, and they
Matchy
are a
matchy.
visual. We get a visual match to Paige's hair, and he also lets them know that they have like the skin tags on them, so they've been ripped out. So these aren't just like, we all shed a crazy amount of hair every day, but these have been ripped out.
Skin tag on hair is the footprints of this season.
Yes. We have then Jim Brass and Grissom with the professor in interrogation, and they're kind of like talking to him about where he's been at certain times, and they let him know that a phone call came from his house to the dorm, and he was like, I've never called her from my house or my office. And we realize that his wife was at home when the phone call was made. So
I feel like everyone in that room is a little slow to come to this obvious conclusion.
yes, it definitely. Yeah, this was definitely like, come on, guys, you can do it. You can put two and two together and get to 4. Come on. So then we go to Jim Brass and Grissom with the professor and his wife.
Who they're not bringing her into the interrogation room.
No, they're just out in the hallway. They're just out in
the on the reception desk.
In the reception area. Yeah. So this is all admissible in court, I'm sure. Like, this is all good. So she does admit that she called Paige up. She took her for a ride, but she explains that there wasn't a struggle. She didn't fight her. She wanted to, but she didn't. That when she was getting out of the car, her hair just like got caught in like the part of the seat, like the part where the head rest is.
When I first found the hair, I remember thinking, like, this happens to people with longer hair all the time. I had like shoulder length hair for like, I don't know, 2 years of my life.
Yeah.
And randomly, but my arm hair gets stuck in stuff.
It's tough,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's like, it doesn't take a lot for a few hairs to get pulled out. And if you're pulling the hair out of like the seat, like thing that's already like keeping it taut, then you already know what pulled the hair out.
Right.
Someone didn't rip hair out of your head and then cram it back into the headrest.
Yeah.
So I was kind of weirded out with the tangent they went on here. And so I'm glad it resolved in the most logical way possible.
Yeah. So Grissom then gets a phone call, and this brings Grissom and Warwick to a trash compacting facility, and they're led, down the certain aisle, and we see a blonde-headed face like, sticking out of the trash.
This trash compacting facility just makes me realize how much plastic people are throwing away even 20 years ago.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Because all you can see in this is plastic.
Yeah. So then we have Grissom and Catherine with Doc Robbins. We learn that Paige was crushed post-mortem, so it wasn't the compacting that killed her. She was already dead. She died from her spleen rupturing, which was caused by blunt force trauma. But Doc Robbins is saying that he's not sure he's ever going to be able to say like what caused the blunt force trauma, because she's been accordioned up and he has to like detangle her basically. So he's like, I might not be able to tell you what caused the blunt force trauma.
Also, like, what a well-preserved corpse for going through a trash compactor.
Yeah, she looks great. Looks wonderful. So we head back to the team. They're back at the dumpster. Warwick finds blood, and Nick somehow miraculously can detect the dent that is the freshest from a heavily dented dumpster. And so they find vehicle paint chips, which they just know that this is from recently.
Yep, it has to be.
Yeah. So
I mean, there's some ways in which you could like draw that conclusion, but like not right away.
No. And they don't explain it. They're just like, he's just like, I know that this is fresh. And I'm like, oh, okay, but how?
And then Catherine's like, oh, there's some other things on the ground here. That must be the same paint. Let me pick that up.
Yep. So we go to Grissom and Nick. They are checking out the paint chips. They realize that the car was white, red, and then black. That the the car had 3 layers of paint on it. So it had been like professionally painted at least twice from its original color. They identify it
Who
either.
does that?
I have no idea. Like once I sort of I get maybe once. Like if I found my dream car but it was white, I would paint that car because I hate white cars. But I can't see myself then like a few years later being like, let me paint it again.
Like the whole car. It's not like
not part of it, not designs, not
yeah. I don't think you got an accident and they had to repaint that panel because they undented it.
Yeah. They're able to identify that it's either an 89 or a 90 Cherokee, and Nick lets Grissom know that he already called Jim Brass and like gave him the details, so they're going to try to find a matching car. So
CSI magic there.
Yeah, so then there's a walk and talk with Warwick and Grissom, and this is where we learn that the blood from the dumpster does match Paige. So blood found in the dumpster matches Paige.
Much kudos. I mean, I didn't know DNA technology 20 years ago was able to take week-old
blood and
trash that's had at least 7 days worth of trash dumped on top of it and emptied.
Yeah. And then Nick comes up and lets Grissom know that they found the car, and so the driver of the car is with Jim Brass. So we have then Jim Brass and Grissom with, I put expectant father because that's like the first thing that they say about him is that he's an expecting father.
I have his last name down as Doyle.
Okay, so Mr. Doyle here, and we learned that he does cut through campus sometimes, and he did it this night because he thought his wife was like having the baby, and he was trying to get home as quickly as he could. And he does explain that, the ground was wet, and he swiped the dumpster, but that's all that happened. And he's basically like, he doesn't know why he's there. Like, he's kind of like if I hit a car or something, I would have stopped. He's like, all I did was sideswipe a dumpster, so I kept going. Like, it wasn't a big deal.
He's being arrested for hitting a dumpster.
Yeah. And so we then go to the team checking out his car, and they have to admit that, while he hit the dumpster, there's no evidence that he hit Paige. Like, there's no blood, there's no DNA, there's no damage from hitting a person. This is where we get the title of the episode, and Grissom goes on a long diatribe about the chaos theory.
A little over the top.
A little over the top. I was like, are you trying to fill time? Because this feels like you're trying to fill time.
I mean, we had a 25-second walk through the hall montage at the beginning, and
that is true.
15 seconds of Vegas. So I think
there was some time to be filled.
I think it just didn't get cut where it might have otherwise been cut. I will say this scene, I was laughing, especially on the second watch through. They never explain what Sarah is doing when she's spraying the car, even after they've said they've already exhausted everything.
Probably Lumino.
Yep, but they clearly have been shooting this scene like 5 times because the only place where this is right under where she's sitting. There's a giant puddle of water.
Yeah, so she's just getting spraying.
She's just been spraying it. It's been dripping down through like 10, 20 takes.
You're like, clean
and then
it up,
Nick
guys.
rolls out from underneath them. They try to do that one shot.
Yeah,
probably couldn't get the timing to get his.
Yeah,
face.
to have him get. Yeah. Oh, that's funny. I didn't notice that.
I was just like, oh, this is one of those things that happens when you just shoot an episode over and over.
Yeah, I mean, it can take countless takes to get, especially if you're trying to time something well, it can be a little dicey. So we have Grissom and Sarah back in room 410. Grissom is talking to Sarah, and then we have this like strange melding of Paige and Sarah. So he's technically and I sort of missed this on the first watch through, and then on the second one I was like, oh, he's technically talking to Sarah this entire time, but he's envisioning her as Paige during certain parts of the conversation, but he's technically like talking it through with Sarah the entire time, but parts of it is the actress who plays Paige. And so they're kind of walking through like, okay, but your bags are here and this and that. And then they're like, is anything missing? And they're like, no. And then they were like, oh, there's no trash can.
A really great full circle callback here is that they show her wearing her jacket. Even though in the first scene she wasn't, because their assumption would be that she would have her jacket on.
Right, because she was going out to go to the cab,
But when they showed like the first scene, they're actually showing the reality. That's not what happened. Jack was in the bed. She went over, picked it up, put it on, and then got a phone call.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really, like, that was one of those other things that like came back in the second watch there. I went, oh, they did kind of do this the right way. But that seems interesting. It was weird because they didn't have both their voices the whole time.
No.
Sometimes they were talking at the same time. Sometimes
Yeah,
they were fitting them
it was
out.
an odd because yeah,
Like,
sometimes it was fully Paige, sometimes it was a mesh between Paige and Sarah, and then at the very beginning and the very end, it was just Sarah.
yeah, I think some of that might be they just the audio was hard to sync.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
I think they wanted to do a little of it, but like I think they kind of like when they did it, it had a little bit to do with the audio.
yeah, yeah. So this prompts Grissom to go out and borrow a trash can, and he asks Sarah to like dump the trash down the chute, and this is when again the like door to the trash chute like bounces back, like snaps back. And so their thought is like, oh, maybe she was like Sarah was quick enough to be able to like pull the trash out of the
Out.
way in time, but their assumption is well, maybe Paige wasn't fast enough and maybe she ended up dropping the entire trash barrel can down the chute, which I also had to think, is this the first time she has had to empty trash? Like I know she's
Yeah,
leaving in the middle of this, like in the first semester, but like
like everyone on the floor would be used to this by now, right?
you would be used to it. But maybe the idea is like she's stressed out and she's trying to do this
Well,
quickly, and she
I have something really interesting to say about the last flashback. So I will just say that I think part of why it probably happened was I think she's kind of depressed. She's kind of defeated
yeah yeah
in
yeah
this moment,
yeah
and
yeah
just catches her off hand.
yeah
But yeah, I have something I want to say. I'm going to sort of, it's kind of like a long thing. I had to tell my partner about it afterwards. Like I loved it. So for some reason, I loved it so much. Like I just felt it like in my
okay
core. So when they show that, I have
okay
some words. And so this will come back around to and maybe reinforce why this was the time that this happened.
yeah yeah. So they ask a student to like count 100, drop the trash can down the chute, and so the team is back outside by the dumpster. The trash can comes tumbling down the chute and lands in the dumpster. And so they're still trying to figure out, okay, like what she was doing. And then this is when Catherine is like, oh, I know what she was doing. Like there was no easy access to this dumpster. So Catherine gets behind the dumpster and starts like climbing up to lean over
From the backside.
from the backside. And so this is where we then see the reenactment of Paige leaning in, and then as she's leaning in, Mr. Doyle comes down the alleyway, nicks the dumpster, and the dumpster slams into her and slams her into the building, rupturing her spleen, and then she falls the rest of the way into the dumpster and then lands in the trash compactor.
And so I thought the look on this actress's face as she's climbing over that dumpster, I felt this in my soul. Whenever you're having a really terrible series of events and days,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
there's just this point that you get to
That you're like,
where
seriously? Like,
you just don't care. It's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
I'm just going to be miserable and I just
Yeah.
have such malaise.
Yeah.
And I could just think like you're up there. Fuck, I forgot to take the trash out. All right, I'll go take the trash out. Are you kidding me? The trash went down. All right, I guess I'm going down. Cab's here. I need to go.
It's raining. It's like,
yeah, it's raining. And just the way she like climbed up the back of that dumpster, like she had nothing really she felt like at the moment she had nothing left to live for.
Yeah, yeah.
She just wanted to get home and hopefully the next day will be better than this crappy day.
Yeah.
Like her boyfriend, his wife is yelling at him. She's being dumped. She's going home. She's giving up on college. She probably feels like a failure.
Right.
And she's just climbing back of the dumpster. And this poor girl, this dude is just speeding home, hits the dumpster, freak accident, cracks. What a terrible way to die.
Awful.
Bleeding out in a dumpster.
Awful.
Being completely and utterly defeated in life. Probably not the fastest death.
No,
Probably
I don't
not.
think it was most likely not instantaneous.
Yeah. And just like, I was like, I've just really, but like, she just had that look when she crawled over the dumpster. Like she was just, she was already defeated. And I was just like, wow, I felt that way before in my life a few times.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay.
You're like,
that's good job. Good job.
You're like, I feel you.
Yeah. And then I immediately thought, I know you only thought you hit a dumpster, but you hit something and you kept driving away and now a human being is dead. Shouldn't this guy face some kind of charge?
I mean, I don't even know if it would count as manslaughter.
I don't know. You're right. Like, I don't know. Like,
I don't
how,
know. I don't know the legalese
yeah.
enough
Well,
to
leaving the
confidently
scene of
say one way or the other. But
yeah,
it does seem odd that, like, so this is a good
leaving the scene of
segue.
an accident.
Yeah, this is a good segue that it brings us to Grissom and Catherine with the parents, and Grissom is letting the parents know, like, basically through a series of unfortunate
What's the
happenstances,
father? The father says the universe conspired against us.
to kill our daughter, and they can't accept this. At least in the moment, they can't accept it. They are like, nope, somebody is responsible. We will hire detectives. We'll do what we need to do. Grissom, again, just another, and maybe Nick, you're right. Maybe this is like a reintroduction to Grissom. Grissom is like, I can't understand why they're upset. And Catherine's like, they don't have any closure. And Grissom's like, the truth is the closure. And she's like, not always. Like, that's not how it works. Like,
this is
they're grieving parents who want, you know, they want to have somebody responsible. They want to be able to hold somebody responsible. And you're telling them that they, like, it, you can't.
This is a great dichotomy because I think the average person would say that the parents are being reasonable.
Yeah.
Like, it's a reasonable thing to want something to come of it, and to try to maybe see if someone else can help them. But like, in a purely logical standpoint, it's actually not at all reasonable. And that's where Grissom is. Grissom is stuck in this like facts are facts.
So there's
can't get past it. But they're like human reasonable, and he's like machine reasonable.
So there's this whole thing in a certain segment of therapy, and it is the idea of the wise mind. And the wise mind is a fair combination of your emotional mind, which is like where the parents are.
Yep.
And your like rational thinking mind, which is where Grissom is. But the idea is that like neither side of those purely on their own are a good place to make a decision from.
Yes.
Like, you should not purely rely on your emotions to lead to a decision, and you shouldn't rely purely on rationale. There should be some combination of those two things that brings you to wise mind and a wise decision. And this is like a perfect example of like purely emotional, which makes 100% sense that the parents are coming from a very, very emotional place right now.
Particularly in the moment.
Especially in the moment. Like, this is very fresh. They just found out that their daughter died. And
they're mortgaging their house 5 years now.
And Grissom is coming from a completely logical, like, well, they have the truth. That should be enough. And it's like, sir, emotions come into play.
It's heartless.
Yeah, right? Like, seriously, like, you can't understand even a little bit why the truth might not be enough for them. You're just telling them that like random happenstances led to their daughter's death, and that's, you know, while it is true, that brings them no comfort, and they're looking for some semblance of comfort in this moment.
And you know what the difference is like the parents are on like an elastic trajectory. In other words, they've moved all the way over to this emotional state due to excessive circumstance.
Yeah.
And they're going to come, and I think as the reasonable assumption is they're going to come back to earth.
Yeah.
Right? In other words, like 5 years from now, they will not be mortgaging their house to continue to pay a private investigator to keep looking into it. They have gone through phases of grief and it will come to acceptance.
Yeah.
Right? They're in denial right now, right? And which is why there are phases of grief, right?
Yeah.
Grissom is not moving. He's going to believe this to the day he dies.
Yeah.
That the truth should have been enough for these people from the moment they heard it until their last dying breath.
Yeah.
And in that way he's set, right? He's set in his world beliefs, whereas the parents are normal humans who respond to the circumstances. And
right.
Grissom is situationally unaware, right?
Yep.
Whereas Catherine plays that foil of I mean, she's representing the audience here, but in a lot of ways she's playing the foil to Griffin. Like, I understand that you're like this, but like, you need to understand, to, even if objectively you just understand that humans have emotions, and that this is an okay place for them to be right now. Right. And let them come home. Right. Let them come get grounded later on. Yeah. And that's what is the most telling is Grissom, for all his intelligence and wisdom, or, you know, in age and time, is that he just constantly falls into the same trap of like, I don't understand why people are like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Whereas like he of all people should be able to reason that human beings are different and that he's different and that other people need to be able to do this.
True story.
Yeah.
Well, that ends the episode. So, Nick, what did you think about today's episode?
I didn't think I was going to like it at first, and then I got to the end of the episode and I decided that I really liked it.
All right.
I just thought there was something different about, I mean, I don't want to get on Grissom's chaos theory horse. That's not my bag. But they respected the truth of the episode the whole time, and on second watch through, all it did is kind of reinforce and validate it. And I thought the directing was really good in this episode. I was kind of playing the "Does everyone do a thing in this episode?" game,
Yep.
and I thought they did okay with that. Work, I think it was probably the short man on the totem pole this episode.
Yeah, he didn't have much. He like found the blood in the dumpster. He didn't do too much else.
But yeah, no, I think I like the episode. It's not like I don't think it's gonna make my top 3 per se this season,
Fair.
unless the season is particularly bad. But
I mean, we are only 2 episodes in, so who knows?
Yeah, it's definitely the best episode of season 2 so far.
Okay. So funny enough, this is more of a middle of the road episode for me. I think maybe I'm getting a little burnt out on single storyline episodes. I'm like, oh my god, like this is the 3rd one in a row now that it's just
halfway
single
through,
story, and I'm
like,
like,
oh, another single story.
Single story. I'm like, give me my 2 crimes in one episode. But I think I enjoyed it more than I remember enjoying it, and I do like that they tried some new like camera techniques, like shifting from the security footage to the like in-person footage, and I like shows when they take risks and they try something new. So I'll give them kudos to trying quite a few different things in this episode. Still probably like meh-ish episode for me, but I can still appreciate it.
Yeah, it's probably gonna fall in that like 70 to 80 range, probably, like if you ranked,
like
from like best to worst episodes or whatever.
Yeah.
It's gonna be in like the 70 to 80 percentile. But yeah, no, it's pretty good. I was like this episode, and I think you mentioned earlier it's a great episode for watching more than once.
Yes.
And it wasn't hard to watch a second time.
No.
Which I think that's like
your
gauge. For me, the new like it's the new like line. Like if I enjoy, like if I have to like push myself to watch this episode a second time, it is not falling in this is a good episode category.
Yeah, that's fair. All right. And so next week we'll be back with season 2, episode 3, Overload. In the meantime, you can find us on Facebook at Who Are You: CSI Podcast. We are also on Twitter /X, Instagram, and Threads at Who Are You CSI Pod. And you can also email us at whoareyoucsipod@gmail.com. And this episode will be released on January 1st, 2024. So
really?
Thanks.
Happy
New Year, guys. It's not the first for us at the moment, but this will be released on the 1st. So happy New Year, guys. And it is close. Happy New Year's, guys. Thank you for being there with us during 2023. And we hope you continue listening throughout 2024. So otherwise, we're going to talk to you next week.
No spoilers.
No spoilers.